the Iran-backed Hezbollah. The French President Emmanuel Macron has already said the Lebanese government was ready to engage in direct talks with Israel, and he offered to host the negotiations in Paris. But the Israeli foreign minister has said his country has no plans for talks at this stage. Well, a wave of missiles has struck central Israel. Cars were burned out and overturned in a district of Tel Aviv when it was hit by a missile with cluster munitions. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has threatened to target the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying he would be pursued and be killed. Well, as well as ruling out a deal, President Trump said US attacks had demolished most of Iran's main oil hub of Khark Island. He hinted at future strikes there, which he described as just for fun. Well, the island, which is critical for the economy of Tehran, has become very much a focal point of the war. Well, let's get the latest now from our correspondent in Riyadh, Frank Gardner.
A US Air Force B-52 taking off from RAF Fairford this morning. Its destination, Iran. This war is now in its third week and showing no sign of stopping. These oil storage tanks were hit in Fujairah yesterday, part of the United Arab Emirates. While oil and gas tankers are backing up, unable to get through the Strait of Hormuz without fear of attack by Iran. That, in turn, is driving up oil prices.
I think it's a priority for the world that the strait is reopened. Obviously, the best and simplest way to do that is to de-escalate the conflict, and I think it's important to underline that.
Yet the stakes have been raised after the US bombed Khark Island, Iran's main oil export terminal in the Gulf.
They think that by striking Khark or some of the islands, they can put pressure on us. On the contrary, all the pressure will fall on the US and European-linked oil companies. That's why we face no problem in this regard.
Oil and petrochemical sites are highly vulnerable on both sides of the Gulf, and governments here know this could still get worse. The Gulf Arab states did not support this war, but if it had been over quickly and the threat from Iran's drones and missiles reduced, they could have accepted that. But that hasn't happened. And every day that it drags on, they worry more about the damage to their petrochemical industries, the global economy, and stability in this entire region. Tel Aviv was targeted again by missiles last night after Israeli warplanes carried out numerous airstrikes on Iran. Israel reported some light injuries, while Tehran has vowed to step up its attacks. And the Lebanese capital, Beirut, was hit by Israeli airstrikes today as they target the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militia. Even sport has not been immune. Both Bahrain and Saudi Arabia have cancelled their Formula One events. This war is casting an ever wider shadow over the Middle East. Frank Gardner, BBC News, Riyadh.
Well, let's focus on those attacks on Israel, which happened in the last couple of hours. Hezbollah claims it's fired what it called an advanced missile at an Israeli base south of Tel Aviv. Our Middle East correspondent John Donaldson has been to the outskirts of the city where one of the attacks today took place.
Right, you can see here we're just on the outskirts of Tel Aviv, and just as we were driving in, the sirens went off, and you can see here where we've got the impact. You've got a couple of cars completely destroyed, fires burning, and a bit of a sense of panic here amongst the people here. A lot of people running towards this spot, presumably to try and find out if anyone they knew had been hurt. We've not heard that there have been any casualties here, but you can see it's a pretty built-up residential neighborhood. And these Iranian missiles, most of them are getting shot down, but some get through. And some of these missiles, what happens is they break up in the sky and form these smaller cluster bombs that don't do as much damage when they fall, but they're still potentially deadly.
In the last hour, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has been visiting the site where a missile landed near the town of Zarzir. It's in the north of the country. It's reported around 13 people were injured in the incident on Saturday. Saar has also been speaking to reporters and was asked about Israel's military preparedness and also about the diplomatic situation with Lebanon.
Can you confirm or comment on reports over the weekend that Israel has informed the United States that it is running low on missile interceptors? Is that correct? And secondly, can you confirm reports that Israel and Lebanon are set to hold direct talks in the coming days? And if so, what would that be about?
For the two questions, the answer is no. Hezbollah is working accordingly to instructions from Tehran, not from Beirut. They are acting against the will of Lebanon and its citizens. If the Lebanese government and the Lebanese army want to change something, they should do something in order to stop the attacks being done by Hezbollah from Lebanese territory. Until now, they hadn't done anything significant in order to stop it.
Well, overnight, strikes in southern Lebanon killed at least 4 people as Israel said it was pressing on with its campaign against Iran-backed Hezbollah. Lebanese officials have just released their latest figures on the impact of the war on Lebanon. They say Israeli strikes have killed more than 800 people since the start of the month. The figure is now 850, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. In terms of displacement, well, more than 800,000 people have been displaced. That's according to the United Nations. Well, Israel has said it's continuing to launch airstrikes on targets, it says, a link to Hezbollah. It's accused the armed group of using ambulances and medical facilities for military purposes after the Lebanese government said an Israeli attack had killed 12 health workers. Our Middle East correspondent Lina Sinjar is in Beirut. I asked her about the latest attacks.
There's another issue is that, Hezbollah is not adhering to any calls from the government to stop this aggression. And they're continuing to firing rockets into Lebanon. They say that they are, having a legitimate right to fight back an aggression on the country. And these talks, there are lots of diplomatic pressure to find a solution to de-escalate, and especially France is pushing for this. That also came after the Lebanese president himself announced that Lebanon is ready to talk. And to remind our audience, Lebanon has been in war with Israel since the 1980s, this is the first invasion of Lebanon by Israel. And this is the time when Hezbollah was established, trained and funded by Iran. So it's decades of this group, taking control of the battle against the enemy, as they call it. They call themselves the resistance group. But I think over the past decade, they started to lose credibility, whether in Lebanon or in the region, as they started to be getting involved in wars in the region. They fought with Assad against the opposition. They fought in Iraq with Iraqi militias. They fought in Yemen with the also Shia militias. This is all serving Iranian agenda, according to many here in Lebanon or in the wider region. And that's what's causing furious anger among the Lebanese, that they took the sole decision to get into war with Israel and drag the country into war, leaving large swathes of the country in rubbles and hundreds of thousands displaced, not knowing when they will be able to go back to their towns and villages, and if they will go back at all.
Well, Iran is lashing out at its neighbours as well. Salvos of ballistic missiles and drones have inflicted damage in several Gulf countries. As we've been hearing, it's now calling on the United Arab Emirates to begin evacuating its population away from those port zones, including Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Fujairah. Oil loading operations have resumed at that port in Fujairah. They're crucial to the economy. They were halted, weren't they, for a short while following that Iranian drone attack and huge fire on Saturday. Well, for Washington's Gulf allies who had hoped to stay out of the conflict, it's been shocking to find themselves in the firing line. They're also deeply concerned about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has largely blocked and is preventing oil being transported to international markets there. Well, our correspondent Azadeh Mashiri is monitoring the situation from Dubai, and she gave us an update on the latest number of interceptions that have taken place in the UAE.
Yes, so they put this roundup out every day. The Ministry of Defense does here in the United Arab Emirates. And they've said that as of this 15th day of war, that they have intercepted 4 ballistic missiles and 6 drones. Now, that number is significantly lower than what we've seen so far, and especially this week. Just yesterday, the figure was about 33 drones and 9 ballistic missiles. earlier this week, you also had some cruise missiles. So a lower figure, and that could hint at various things. Of course, it could suggest some sort of military hit, some hit to Iran's military capabilities, some sort of depletion. But you can also look at some of the statements that have been coming out from the Islamic Republic. When you look at the statement, that first statement, whether it was written by the Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei or not, it talked about maintaining friendship with countries in the Gulf. Masoud Pezeshkian, the president, said similar things. And then earlier today, you had a denial from the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, about targeting any civilian or residential areas, and that they were still open to anyone who was willing to start some sort of initiative to get out of this war. So either way, whether it's because of some sort of change in strategy, some negotiations, or whether it's about that sort of military depletion, the figure